All praises and glory be to the Most High Heavenly Father of Israel, to the Jews and Gentiles, Shalom. When it comes to nations, does the Most High have enemies? Because we have to realize that the Most High has enemies among the nations that He made or the nations that He created. So the question begs, does the Most High have enemies among all the nations that He created? Right? So let's go into this. Let's focus on one enemy of the Most High, the Ishmaelites.
Facts about Africa that you weren't taught in school. In the late 19th century, one of the most powerful and wealthy slave traders in Africa was not European, not American, but an African named Tipu Tip, an Afro-Omani from Zanzibar. He and his followers plundered Central Africa, burning villages, capturing slaves, and depopulating whole regions. He was so powerful he controlled much of the territory of the Eastern Congo, where his slaves carried out the back-breaking work of transporting valuable ivory to the coast. When the great British explorer David Livingstone saw the appalling conditions of the trade, he wrote, "To overdraw its evils is a simple impossibility, a sight I strive to drive from memory." The trade in slaves and ivory, though devastating for the Congo, made Tipu Tip rich. By the time of his death, he owned 7 plantations and a staggering 10,000 slaves. His brutality is why many consider him to be one of the inspirations for the villain in the best-selling novel
One of the major Arab slave traders, Tipu Tip, lived in this house and used the dank and dark underground chambers near the Anglican cathedral to house his slaves, separating them according to sex. This is the Cathedral Church of Christ, which was built in 1873. Before it was a church, on this very spot here grew a tree where slaves were bound and then whipped and beaten to assess their health and ability to work. If they passed that grueling test, they were then moved up here where another tree grew, and they were tied on it and auctioned off and sold by slave traders. Even after the international community had banned slavery, unscrupulous individuals in Zanzibar continued with their nefarious trade. This was one of several concealed holding pens for slaves. From here, they would be led along this pathway to the nearby coast in the dead of night and shipped off to countries in the Middle East. All this was happening in the late 1800s, years after the abolition of slavery.
Okay, so again, just to be clear, let's focus on one enemy of the Most High, the Ishmaelites. Genesis chapter 16 from verse 1 all the way through to verse 4. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abraham, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my maid, it may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar the maid, the Egyptian, after Abraham had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her unto her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Okay, let's pick it up from Genesis 16 and 6. But Abram said unto Sarai, Behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way of Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Verse 11. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. Okay, so now let's skip to the book of Genesis chapter 17. I'm going to read from verse 15 all the way through to 19. And God said unto Abraham, As for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. And I will bless her, and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Verse 17. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, Shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? Verse 18. And Abraham said unto God, O that Ishmael might live before thee. Verse 19. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. Okay, let's go to Isaac being born. This is the book of Genesis chapter 21. I'm going to read from verse 1 all the way through to verse 7. And the Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did unto Sarah as he had spoken. For Sarah conceived and bare Abraham a son in his old age, at the set time of which God had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son that was born unto him, whom Sarah bare to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, being 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born unto him. And Sarah said, God hath made me to laugh, so that all that hear will laugh with me. Verse 7. And she said, Who would have said unto Abraham that Sarah should have given children suck? For I have borne him a son in his old age. Okay, let's go to the book of Genesis chapter 21 from verse 9 all the way through to verse 14. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar the Egyptian, which she had borne unto Abraham, mocking. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac. And the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight because of his son. And God said unto Abraham, Let it not be grievous in thy sight because of the lad, and because of thy bondwoman in all that Sarah hath said unto thee, hearken unto her voice, for in Isaac shall thy seed be called. And also of the son of the bondwoman will I make a nation, because he is thy seed. Verse 14. And Abraham rose up early in the morning, and took bread and a bottle of water, and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. Now, in the process of time, Ishmael's lineages and pedigrees will become a mortal enemy to the Israelites. This is the book of 1 Chronicles chapter 5 verse 10. And in the days of Saul they made war with the Hagarites, who fell by their hand, and they dwelt in the tents throughout all the east land of Gilead. Here's another one. 1 Chronicles chapter 5 verse 20. And they were helping against them, and the Hagarites were delivered into their hand, and all that were with them, for they cried to God in the battle, and he was entreated of them because they put their trust in him. So right here in the book of 1 Chronicles, the 5th chapter, you see the Hagarites being enemies of Israelites. So now going back to Genesis, the 16th chapter, I'm going to read from verse 10 all the way through to verse 12. Let's see what the Most High said concerning Ishmael and his descendants. Genesis 16 and 10. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Verse 11. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. Verse 12. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. So now it comes as no wonder in the Psalms 83rd chapter that Asaph mentions Ishmael as among the nations which were enemies of the Most High and the enemies of Israelites. This is the book of Psalms chapter 83 from verse 1. A song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. Verse 2. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they hate thee that have lifted up the head. Verse 3. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. Verse 4. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. Verse 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are a confederate against thee. Verse 6. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagarines, verse 7, Gibal and Ammon and Amalek, the Philistines, with the inhabitants of Tyre. Verse 7, Asu also is joined with them. They have hope and the children of Lot, Salah. So now it makes sense why during the Arab Islamic East African slave trade, these Ishmaelites had to take a prey from the children of Israel, the scattered of Israel and the dispersed of Judah. It was a light thing for the Ishmaelites to do that to us because they knew we don't come from the same lineages, pedigrees, right? They knew we don't come from the same bloodlines. These people know who we are. That's why it was such a light thing for these enemies of the Most High and our enemies to come against us and enslave us, in this particular case, during the East African Islamic or Arab slave trade, right? Now, what did the Most High say in conclusion? Did he ever tell you to trust your enemies? So when you, an Israelite, you convert into Islam, that's you spitting on your forefathers' faces. Because remember what the scripture says, Ecclesiasticus 12 and 10, never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. So some of us be like, let bygones be bygones, right? That happened in the past. It doesn't matter, man. Let's now focus on the future. Let's focus on the here and now, moving forward. It doesn't matter what our forefathers went through. Some of us be like, I didn't go through that. My forefathers did, but I didn't go through it. So I ain't got hate in my heart towards any of these other people. Okay, cool. But remember what the Most High told you. Never trust your enemies. When you go and you start worshiping all these other gods of these other nations, and the Most High is clear, He told you all the gods of the other nations are idols. That's straight up idolatry. Remember the first commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. The book of Exodus, chapter 20 and verse 1. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Verse 6, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. The book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 14, verse 27. For the worshipping of idols not to be named is the beginning, the cause, and the end of all evil. Now, why did our enemies overcome us? Enemies such as Esau, Ishmael, etc., etc. Let's get it. Baruch 4 and 6. You were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because ye moved the Most High to wrath, ye were delivered unto the enemies. In conclusion, let's remember Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. Fear God and keep his commandments, for that's the whole duty of man. Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. Shalom.